Thank you.
Thank you. Community colleges?
Mario Rodriguez with the Chancellor's Office. Well, overall we support the entire package. I wanted to just call out a few things. The $75 million base increase, as you mentioned in your opening, that's a big step in the right direction for us to regain that purchasing power lost during the recent recession. Also, the $26 million for part-time and full-time faculty support. That's been a big priority of our board in recent years, and so it's great for our system to see both of those combined together to really increase the quality of instruction we're able to provide to our students. And then the $15 million each for the Veterans Resource Centers and the Promise programs, those are huge investments that I think are really going to, over the long run, really make a big difference for not only the transfer pathways that we have from K-12 community colleges and on to CSUs, but also for veterans that are trying to get themselves in to complete their degrees and certificates on time. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Assemblymember Kim.
On this particular issue, I know we discussed and we voted yesterday regarding the governor's proposal to provide, I believe it was $20 million in one-time Proposition 98 general fund for a charter school startup grant program. I know we took position on this yesterday, but I would like to ask the chair if we could take this item out separately so we can vote on it separately. Can I just make a motion to move that we revisit the governor's proposal to provide $20 million in one-time Proposition 98 general fund for a charter school startup grant program and allow us to take a vote on it?
Certainly, you can make that motion. I don't support that. If you want to take a motion,
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is part of the package. It is part of the package. And you have a recommendation to reject it, so I wanted to point it out separately.
Sure. Okay. You want to take that motion right now or at the end after we have commentary on all the other?
Now, since we are.
Okay. So your motion is to do what again, Ms.?
My motion is to accept governor's proposal to provide $20 million in one-time Proposition 98 general fund for a charter school startup grant program.
We already voted for it yesterday.
Do we have a second on that?
I second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Where's the CTE?
Mr. Chair, may I make a substitute motion?
Okay.
That we adopt the Proposition 98 package.
Okay.
Are we going to allow to speak on the motion?
Well, the substitute motion, I think, has precedent. That's the main motion on the floor right now. So we have a motion to adopt the Prop 98 package as before us today. Any debate or comments on this motion?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I think the You know, we've been going through a lot of hearings, and I'd like to highlight, which I actually think are some pretty good things here in this 98. The $2.5 million one-time Prop 98 general fund to create this California Center for Teaching Careers to statewide recruitments. We've identified and heard that probably the most important investment we can make is within our teachers, and so I think that's a good item, and I'm happy that we have it there. Looking again at it, the issue of the $15 million for the Veteran Resource Center for the Prop 98 for the centers, actually I believe that was similar to Irwin and myself's bill that we were trying to push through. That's a very good thing, and probably for that reason I'm going to be supporting this, because that's, to me, is extremely important. I also feel that the looking at the May revise trailer bill language for the consortiums for adult education, we had started this 3 years ago, and the original governor's proposal was to get rid of adult education, and we were able to fight that through, and it's going to be able to continue because there's still work to be done in the consortiums. I support that a great deal also. I do share the concerns of my fellow Republican member on the charter schools. I wish we would have been able to take care of them. And the last thing I'd like to make a comment on is that the CTE advocates are asking for an additional $100 million for CTE incentive grant program to sustain the $400 million from last year's. We know that one of the biggest issues we have in the state is income inequality, and how we can ensure that everybody has part of the American dream. And I believe it comes often from our community colleges and further development in CTE. So I'm sad to see this will be going down, but I'll be fighting for this in the future, because I know that there's probably nothing more important than ensuring that every family has a good economic base to ensure their children live healthy and safe, and really change our economy. So there's a lot of good things in here. I wish we'd have been able to take care of the charter school grants, but I'm sure that'll be a continuing battle for the future. To restate, one of the biggest things I do like about this is the issue of taking care of the teachers, taking care of the veterans, and making sure that we have an adequately trained workforce. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to think when we go run around the streets later on today, we did a lot of good work here, I think, and I just want to highlight you and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Say a few words
I-
to it.
Ms. Kim.
Yes. Well, thank you for the consideration. I, too, think that Proposition 98 spending plan does have very good programs that we are supporting, and I do support many of those, except there are a lot of items that have been taken out, including my biggest problem that I just raised my concern regarding the charter school startup grants. But then there are other programs that have been taken out, like the plan to provide differentiated funding for full-time versus part-time kindergarten program, one-time funding to expand school breakfast programs, one-time funds for ongoing costs type of thing. Well, lack of any reforms promoted by our Great Schools package. Reform should be coupled with increased funding. And as you just noted by Mr. Rocky Chavez, the CTE advocates are asking for an additional $100 million for CTE incentive grant program to sustain that $400 million from last year. All these have been taken out, so I have concerns. And I just can't get there, so I will be not voting on this issue item number 1 for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt the Prop 98 package as outlined in the agenda and on the table. For those that don't have it, it's on our website as well. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it deals with furthering funding our schools that were cut dramatically during the recession, focusing on issues like after-school programs, restorative justice, as well as our teacher shortage. I want to mention too, because I concur, Ms. Kim, as far as the CTE. We know that we need more people to get more education, not always college, certificates, job training programs, and CTE is a big part of that. We're nowhere near where we used to be with our ROP programs and our public school systems and so forth. So Last year we put in $400 million, then we have $300 million for 2 years in a row, and I am concerned that at the end of the day, that districts won't use their LCFF money to fund CTE. But I think that at this point in time, we need to wait because the money just went out the door, I think, 2 months ago. And so I think by this time next year, we can see how it was going first years and how districts were using, if they weren't using their LCFF dollars to backfill the monies they were getting at the $400 million level. So I think this is an issue that we need to monitor to make sure that we are investing in CTE across California. But at this time, I think this is the best we could do, dealing with competing priorities. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty?
Aye.
Chavez?
Aye.
Irwin? Kim? O'Donnell?
Aye. Okay, the measure passes 3-0. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll proceed again. Issue number 2, the Child Care AB 104 Stakeholder Trailer Bill, Department of Finance.
Good afternoon, Jessica Holmes, Department of Finance. Is that on now? Okay, there we go. Good afternoon, Jessica Holmes, Department of Finance. The 2015 Budget Act included trailer bill language directing the Department of Education to engage in stakeholder work groups surrounding creating recommendations for administrative efficiencies for child care administration, specifically for alternative payment programs and for direct contracted Title V programs. On April 1st of this year, the work groups came out with some recommendations, 43 to be exact. And of these, a few require statute, a few can be done regulatorily. The ones that require statute, we have a couple that we've included in the trailer bill language and the proposal for May revision. The first deals with single parent verification. One issue that a lot of families struggle with and find a barrier to care is proving a negative, as they stated it, proving that a parent is not in the household. And so this would allow families under penalty of perjury to self-certify that there is a single parent in the household. Another issue that causes a lot of confusion among families and workload for administrative folks who administer these programs is providing information through what's called a notice of action to families when there is a change in their eligibility. There are many different types of actions that could trigger the need to provide this information. And so we have some language included in the budget, trailer bill language proposal that would create some efficiencies surrounding the notices of action. as a side note, we have received some comments from the Legislative Analyst's Office regarding the language for the NOAAs, and we are looking at that with them, engaging in some conversations to make sure that the language matches the intent.
Okay. Aleo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Virginia Early, Legislative Analyst Office. So as Ms. Holmes mentioned, we do have concerns with the language, the way it's written. We agree with the intent of the two proposals, but we're concerned that that the language does not necessarily specifically ensure that the intent is carried out. And so we're happy to work with you, your staff, Department of Finance, and Department of Education to clarify and refine the language.
Thank you. Department of Education?
Deborah Brown with the Department of Education. We would just note that we think that the AB 104 process was an effective one that helped address some administrative efficiencies, and we're working on our part to do some of those that we can do administratively, and would support the proposed trailer bill language, understanding that some of that language might need to be cleaned up.
Thank you. This is the item today where we'll be holding public comment. If anybody's interested in commenting on this item. Seeing none, any comments or questions from committee members? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion, a second, to adopt the placeholder trailer bill language regarding to child care AB 104 issues.
Move approval of the child care AB 104 stakeholder trailer bill language.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, a second. Please call the roll.
McCarty?
Aye.
Chavez?
Aye.
Irwin? Aye. Kim? Aye. O'Donnell?
Okay. Good. Our last item. Two more items.
Two items.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Issue 3, again, is the Child Development Teacher and Supervisor Grant Program and Federal Quality Funding Language. Department of Finance?
Yes, so Jessica Holmes, Department of Finance. This, I think this is 2 items, I think from what I've read in the agenda. So, but they both deal with federal CCDF, or Child Care and Development Fund, quality funding. As you may or may not know, the state is required to take a percentage of its federal CCDF funding and use it for quality activities. The 2014 reauthorization of the CCDBG, the Child Care and Development Block Grant, requires that this percentage be increased. And so part of this increase, which is included in the May revision, we have language included that would require the Department of Education to update their quality expenditure plan. Within that update, we are requiring them to create a priority for the QRS, the Quality Rating and Improvement System for Child Care. We believe that if QRS is a priority for our state, then it should definitely be a priority for our federal quality dollars. In addition, we have eliminated the language for the Child Development Teacher and Supervisor Grant Program. This grant program is a relatively small grant program, but it provides student aid for child care workers who are looking to get a teacher permit or a supervisor permit. And we note that this program is need-based in nature, and that there are many other need-based programs that these folks can access, specifically the BOG fee waiver program, Cal Grants, so on and so forth. And so we don't believe that this program needs to be continued and would free up federal quality dollars to invest in the QRS.
Thank you. LAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we haven't raised concerns with either of these proposals. In terms of the quality plan, we think that asking CDE to prioritize funds for QRS is reasonable, since this would allow local QRS consortia to use the funds for local priorities. And in terms of the grant, we would also note, as Ms. Holmes mentioned, there are other financial aid programs that are available to students that are taking courses towards their child development teacher permit. We aren't aware of any data or research or program evaluation about the effectiveness of this program in terms of increasing the supply of child care workers. And just one other thing on this, nothing would prevent prevent local QRS consortia from using their funds to continue to support and provide financial aid to students that are enrolled in courses towards their child development teacher permit or supervisor permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Brown with the Department of Education. We continue to strongly support the QRIS, and on the Child Development Teacher Supervisor Grant Program. We don't have a position on eliminating it, but just want to be mindful of eliminating a program that does provide support for people who want to get into the child care field. So would want to be mindful of that before eliminating a program.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, looking for a motion and a second to approve the following recommendation: to reject the proposed elimination of the Child Development Teacher and Supervisor Grant Program, as well as adopting the May revision proposed budget bill language.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please call the roll.
McCarty?
Aye.
Chavez?
Aye.
Irwin? Kim? O'Donnell?
Okay, thank you. Now we're up to our last item of the year, and certainly it's the last item, but it's not the least important. Frankly, I probably think it's the most important, and that's our early care and education program, and our proposal from the Assembly. We know that during the Great Recession, we cut about $1 billion from our child care and preschool programs, and we haven't fully restored. And even at that time, we weren't serving all of the kids who needed services, and frankly, the working parents need services in California as well. And we know that the vast body of research shows that it's critically important. There's nothing that we could do in society more important if we're investing in education in little ones between the ages of 0 and 5. And, just repeat that famous quote by Langston Hughes: it's easier to build a person than to fix a person. I think they said man in there, but I think in this day and age, it's person's probably more appropriate. So all the money we spend in education, higher education, some of that doesn't matter if we don't have the opportunity to make sure kids enter kindergarten ready to learn. So with that, we're proud of a robust Assembly package today to focusing on our early care and education. With this, there are a few elements that I wanted to highlight, really dealing with rates, eligibility, and access and quality. The first, as far as rates, we're going to increase our standard reimbursement rate by 15%, allowing programs to serve and be more financially viable to serve the population that they wish to serve. We're also going to increase the regional market rate, the RMR, to the 80th percentile of the 2014 survey. The last survey was 2007, right? So we're out of date, and so we're going to increase the percentages as well as going back by current or rarely current economics. And we're also going to increase eligibility to 80% of the current family child care home rate to focus on rates as well. As far as eligibility, we're going to implement a streamlined 12-month eligibility reporting, hoping that kids won't get kicked out because of paperwork, as well as hoping to save some of the costs from some of the bureaucracy dealing with this increased paperwork. We're also going to increase eligibility to 85% of the current SMI. We know that many working parents, even people who are making the new minimum wage, sometimes won't necessarily qualify for these programs, and so we think it's about time that we index it up to make sure more families are eligible. As far as access, we're going to add 10,000 new preschool slots, 7,500 part-day slots, and 2,500 full-day slots. With this, we think there are about 30,000 low-income 4-year-olds that still don't have access to either state preschool, Head Start, or transitional kindergarten, so we're still not done in this effort. We're also going to expand the alternative payment child care program by 6,000 slots. As far as quality, we're going to provide $25 million in additional support for our Quality Rating Improvement System, QRIS, which we know goes a long way in making sure that the high-quality programs provide the best results. We want to make sure we we continue focusing on there, as well as we're going to be providing, which was identified in the Prop 98 package, one-time Prop 98 dollars for one-time early education investments. We're going to be providing $15 for the data efficiency management project. 15. What did I say? $15. Oh, $15 million.
1.5.
Okay. $15 million, of course. We're going to be providing $12 million in general fund in additional one-time quality improvements, and 1.4 to extend the apprenticeship program. As far as future planning, I wanted to note that after consultation with the Speaker of the Assembly, who, as we know, is a big champion and advocate for investing in our earliest learners, we're going to announce that the Speaker will be establishing a Blue Ribbon Commission on Early Care and Education to improve services and access for children between the ages of 0 and 3, as well as develop options for establishing universal preschool access for all 4-year-olds, most importantly focusing on ensuring access for all low-income 4-year-olds. Also, we want to recognize that we'll be providing in the future, is this the future or current right here?
This is planning for the future by adding the money now.
Yes, and then we'll also be providing $317,000 in one-time resources to focus on a statewide plan for pre-K for all 4-year-olds in California. So with that, I wanted to ask Department of Finance and LAO and CDE if you'd like to comment.
Jessica Holmes, Department of Finance. We support the governor's budget. We also note our concerns with the fact that much of the Proposition 98 funding included in this budget uses one-time funding for ongoing purposes, and we have strong concerns with that.
LAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay.
Deborah Brown with the Department of Education. We're still reviewing the details of the proposal, but overall we think that this is going in the right direction. It's addressing the things that we've been asking for all year. So primarily looking at rates, the superintendent has been calling on an increase in reimbursement rates, so we would support that. The eligibility criteria, implementing a streamlined 12-month eligibility reporting, access, and quality. So those are the things that we've been advocating for all year and in the past. And so we support the direction of the proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Chavez?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments on this. As a lot of you know, since I think I surprised a lot of people back in 12 when I was first on this committee, that I started talking about early child education, and I started changing the term to early cognitive development. So it's kind of nice to be seeing here 4 years later that it's coming out here. The increased rates, I had previously had a bill that just did that, didn't make it through the approach, so I'm glad to see that it made it through this process. The eligibility changes, 85% of the current SMI, that was another point that we identified. A lot of people don't know that even with 2 working families in the process of child care, it's often decided about, one of the spouses is going to have to stay home because child care. So the eligibility changes were something we were looking at. So I'm happy to see that there. I have stressed this a number of times that when you talk to the average citizen out there, they're going to think that we're talking babysitting. We're not talking about babysitting. We're talking about early cognitive development. And the quality rating improvement system investments, I think, is extremely important, because if we don't ensure that there's quality in this process, then it will be babysitting. So we need to continue to do that. I heard what you're saying about one-time funding, for Prop 98. But this is a change that we're going through. I think as we continue to push this, it's going to be seen as more of a actually budget item, just as we see the CSUs, the UCs, the community colleges, the K through 12. We're going to see the 0 through 5 just as another component of education. And so I would see in the future, even the time that I'll be here, that'll happen. And the last thing, Chair, that I'd like to highlight to you is that when the Blue Ribbon Commission goes forward, it would hopefully be a bipartisan commission. And being a strong advocate as a Republican in this issue for 4 years now, I would just let you know I'd love to be involved in that process. And so
duly noted.
I will make a motion to approve issue for early assembly education plan.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this? No. The motion is to adopt the plan with conforming technical adjustments and reject the provisions related to the early education reform that were part of the governor's proposal. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
McCarty?
Aye.
Chavez?
Aye.
Irwin? Aye. Kim? O'Donnell?
Okay. Thank you. That item passes 4-0, and we're going to lift the call on one item.
Prop 98 spending plan.
Yeah, the Prop 98 spending plan.
Call the absent member.
Call the absent members.
Irwin? Aye. Kim?
Okay, that item passes 4-0. Oh, yeah. Do you want to add on to the other ones, Mr. Chavez?
Yes, 1 through 8. I'm ready
Yes.
to go. Want to do them all at once or just?
Yep. Issue number 1, enrollment funding, California Community Colleges.
Aye.
Issue 2, COLA, California Community Colleges.
Aye.
Issue 3, Institutional Effectiveness Division.
Aye.
Issue 4, Data Security.
Aye.
Issue 5, Apprenticeship Rates.
Aye.
Issue 6, Mandates.
Aye.
Issue 7, Prop 39.
Aye.
Issue 8, Telecommunications and Technology.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.